Hello, this is Motoworld, and thank you for joining us. First up today, Motocross Nations. A team of U.S. riders ventured to France looking for an 8th consecutive win. Did they do it? We'll get to that in just a minute, but first, let's look at last year's events, the subject of this week's Fram Autolite Flashback. Dave Bowman reports.
For 6 years in a row, U.S. riders dominated Motocross Nations. In 1987, however, there were many on hand that predicted an end to the American string. Their opinions were based on the weather. A hard continental rain turned the rough, hilly Unadilla track into a roller coaster of mud. It was felt the severe track conditions would favor the European style of riding. The so-called experts, though, did not count on 3 things: determination, desire, and the heart of the American team. Unadilla's favorite son, Bob Hanna, crashed on the first moto, but went on to finish 4th. The 1976 125 national champ followed that performance with a 2nd moto win. Rick Johnson aboard a 250 turned in a pair of superb rides. The Honda Ace easily topped the field in both 250 motos. In the 500 class, Jeff Ward on a Kawasaki was the hero. Despite losing his goggles in the opening lap of both 500 motos, Ward turned in rides good enough for 2nd and 3rd. When the final checkered flag was thrown, the U.S. teams had beaten the odds and embarrassed the experts. They were Motocross Nations champs for the 7th consecutive year. For Motoworld, this is Dave Bowman.
From upstate New York, we traveled to France for this year's rendition of Motocross Nations. There was a change in the lineup as far as the American contingent was concerned. Replacing Bob Hanna was Ron Lachine. And how did Team USA fare this year? Well, let's take a look. Those involved in Motocross Nations experienced the same pressures and sense of pride experienced by athletes in the Olympics. In fact, in motorcycling, Motocross Nations is as close to the Olympics as you can get. Each participating country is represented by 3 riders on motorcycles of different engine displacements. On the track, they are mixed together. Their performances, though, are judged only against those riding the same size equipment. The winner of each moto or race in each class receives 1 point. Second place, 2 points, and so on. The best 4 scores out of 6 count toward the team title. In the first moto, number 3, Jeff Ward on a 125 Kawasaki, and number 1, Ron Lachine, aboard a 500 Kawasaki, gave the rest of the world a hint as to what was in store. Lachine took the early lead, and with American flags waving, was gone. Jeff Ward did not fare quite as well, but considering he had not ridden a 125 in several years, his performance was remarkable. Ward led the 125 field for most of the race before settling for 2nd. The class win went to number 6, 125 specialist Jean-Michel Bale from France. In the second moto, the 125s were joined by the 250s. The results were even more impressive for the strong U.S. team. Rick Johnson took the early lead and was never threatened. To keep boredom from settling in, the U.S. star entertained the huge French crowd with a patented Magic Man aerial show. Meanwhile, Jeff Ward had reached into years gone by and recalled the skills that once made him a 125 national champ. He dominated the class and took the win. The third and final moto for 250s and 500s was a mere formality. With 3 class wins and a 2nd already recorded, the U.S. team with a score of 5 could not be beaten. Another class win, however, would give the U.S. team a perfect score. And they got it with Ron Lachine's 2nd win of the day. Rick Johnson, meanwhile, had his hands full. Starting from the 2nd row, Johnson went through the first corner well back in the pack and played catch-up the entire moto. When it was over, Johnson had caught all the 250s except number 8, Rob Herring from Britain. Johnson had to settle for 2nd. The U.S. team, though, settled only for perfection. They recorded an unprecedented 8th consecutive Motocross Nations win. France finished 2nd with Finland 3rd, Australia 4th, and Holland 5th. Still to come on Motoworld, Speedway stars trade in 2 wheels for 4 legs. Controversy at the Syracuse Mile as the race is decided off the track. And coming up next, meet the new world champ and see him in action. Eddie Lawson is next on Motoworld. Dennis Torres has joined us with the World Championship deciding Czechoslovakian Road Race Grand Prix. Dennis, it's official. Steady Eddie Lawson has brought the world title back to the USA.
That he did. A 2nd place in Czechoslovakia did the trick. Eddie Lawson is now the proud owner of 3 world championships. The championship ride was typical of Eddie Lawson's style. He rode just fast enough to fulfill his objective.
The Czechoslovakian story begins in practice.
Wayne Gardner, only mathematically alive in the championship, rode like a demon to earn pole position by almost a second and a half. Here, he almost loses it negotiating the last turn. The defending world champ wasn't alone in the lack of grip department. Here's Randy Mamola on the Cagiva in the same turn. Then, a little later, it was Wayne Rainey's turn to raise his heartbeat. But the most impressive was this sequence by Mamola, which must be appreciated in slow motion. No one has had the number of near spills and amazing recoveries as Randy Mamola. This one was just one of many. Once the race started, it was obvious Gardner's devastating performance in qualifying would carry over to the race. At the drop of the green, he was gone, in a class by himself, reminiscent of Wayne Rainey's performance in England. Lawson, meanwhile, found himself in the midst of a 5-rider battle for second. He eventually took second place for good with his slingshot braking move on Kevin McGee riding the Lucky Strike Yamaha. Later, McGee was involved in a horrific accident that could have proven very serious. In slow motion, you see the rear wheel lose, then gain adhesion, flicking McGee to the pavement. As bike and rider tumble, the Yamaha bounces off the Armco back on top of McGee. The Aussie escaped with minor hand lacerations. Up front, Gardner comes to the checkers and looks around for his competition as Lawson comes around to take second with Wayne Rainey right on his tail for third. With that second place, Upland, California's Eddie Lawson becomes world champion for the third time in his career. For this monumental accomplishment, Steady Eddie is our Castrol Rider of the Week. The new world champ will receive a custom jacket and plaque for being named Castrol Rider of the Week. After the Czech Grand Prix, Eddie Lawson returned home to California. We took the opportunity to visit with the new champ and talk about the '88 season thus far. The first question, what's going on with the highly publicized rivalry with Wayne Gardner?
I think that Wayne and I probably, we don't get along very well, but yet not as bad as the press make it out, which is okay also. I think it's good for the sport.
The Lawson-Gardner rivalry is, by most accounts, good for the sport. However, when you ask what is good for Eddie Lawson, his answer takes you back into time. April 10th, 1988 to be exact.
The USGP win was the greatest ever for me. That was the most important win I could have ever had. The American people there, my family was there, my close friends were there. All of Southern California was there, went up to that race. So, I mean, it was fantastic. Winning that was almost like winning a championship.
With 3 world titles, Lawson joins an elite group of riders. Only his team manager, Giacomo Agostini, Jeff Duke, Mike Halewood, and John Surtees have won more. Looking at career race wins of active riders, Eddie Lawson is way out front. In fact, it's interesting to note that only 6 active riders have won 500cc GP events. During rare visits back home in between races, Lawson has time to ponder the rigors of his career. With all those statistics, all those miles of racing, is the motivation still there?
I know when I get on the airplane, I think, oh, do I really want to do this, go through all this? Then I get to the racetrack, and if I have a bad race and I finish second or third or something, I think that makes me so angry. So I know the motivation's there. Whenever I finish second behind someone, I'm just furious with myself and everything else. I can't wait to the next race so I can fix that problem and win. So it's still there, there's no doubt.
That's bad news for Lawson rivals. You would think after everything Steady Eddie has done, some of the fire would be diminishing. When you look at all the greats, consistency and longevity are the common denominators.
And I guess that's why they call him Steady Eddie Lawson. Thank you, Dennis. When Motoworld continues, we'll drop in on another championship battle. This one on the dirt. We'll be right back. In sports it's a game of inches. Sometimes, though, it can be a game of pounds or even ounces. Defending dirt track champ Bubba Schobert found that out the hard way. Chris Larson explains.
Over the years, Bubba Schobert has dominated the races at the New York State Fairgrounds. He has won 2 of the last 3 races here, including the most recent event in '86. In the early laps, Schobert's protege and new teammate Dan Ingram, number 31, took the lead. Behind him, series points leader number 11, Scott Parker on the Harley. Schobert was back in the pack, a victim of a bad start. As the laps went into the book, Ingram and Parker began to pull away from the field. Schobert finally broke free of the pack and eventually joined in on the fun. Then down the backstretch, Parker's hardly lets go, leaving Schobert and Ingram all by their lonesomes. This was the best possible scenario for Schobert. If Schobert held on for the win, he would take the standings lead from Parker and break the Harley riders' momentum. Schobert eventually pulled out on Ingram. Was it Schobert's experience, team orders, or Ingram's desire to keep in Schobert's good graces? No one will ever know. Schobert took the checkered flag well ahead of Ingram, who in turn was well ahead of Steve Moorhead. Schobert was ecstatic on the victory rostrum, but the thrill of victory would soon turn into the agony of defeat. His post-race praise of new teammate Ingram turned out to be prophetic.
This is probably the first year Dan's had some really good equipment. I'm able to get him and back him up with some good equipment. He's doing a terrific job, and no doubt in my mind he'll be winning nationals soon.
While Schobert continued with his interview, his prediction came true, sooner than he would have liked. Schobert's #1 Honda was found to be underweight during the customary post-race weigh-in. Ingram was declared the winner, Schobert disqualified. The Syracuse fiasco could be enough to sabotage Schobert's championship hopes. Instead of taking the points lead, Schobert remained 16 points behind Parker with 3 races left on the schedule. Reporting for Motoworld, this is Chris Larson.
This week's Coors Behind the Scenes segment takes a closer look at that unique arrangement between Bubba Schobert and Syracuse Mile winner and new teammate Dan Ingram. As Steve Saunders reports, the arrangement is beneficial for both parties.
If you were to wander through an AMA dirt track paddock lately and peep into Bubba Schobert's pit, you'll notice the stable has grown. Alongside the #1 Honda, there is a sister machine carrying the number 31 plate. As you might know by now, that plate belongs to Syracuse Mile winner Dan Ingram. You should also know by now that he is a new addition to national champion Bubba Schobert's effort.
Well, there's a few things that Skip and I myself would like to try at certain racetracks that I don't really, and when you're winning and you're in the hunt for the point standings, you don't want to take a lot of chances and try a bunch of new stuff. And this would give us an opportunity to try some of that new stuff, and we needed a rider that could give us the feedback.
The Skip Bubba mentions is longtime head mechanic Skip Akins, who analyzes all the feedback and talks about having a test pilot program on a team that is still vying for 2 national titles.
There's a risk in that, and we discussed it, Bubba and I discussed it, and I think it just takes a little discipline, mental discipline, that Bubba does come first, and if there is time, and there has been, that the rest of it will go to Danny.
Earlier, Chris Larson reported that Ingram was declared the Syracuse winner after Schobert's disqualification. Add to that Ingram's runner-up finish at the Springfield Mile, and you quickly come to agree with Akins' rationale in his choice of Ingram as their second rider.
He's paid his dues. He doesn't crash a lot, doesn't fall off and bend up stuff, but he has a lot of talent, and he's really had a hard time getting good equipment in the past, and I just thought he would do well.
Doing well is an understatement. Ingram is doing great. A tip of the Motoworld hat to Schobert and Akins for good business sense and giving back to the sport that has been so generous to them. Reporting for Motoworld, this is Steve Saunders.
This week's Rolaids Rough Ride of the Week belongs to this unlucky road racer. After that, he definitely needed that 100% Rolaids relief.
Team Suzuki presents the Motoworld Suzuki Event Calendar. A look at some of the major events coming up in the world of motorcycles and ATVs.
The AMA Camel Pro Road Race Series finale will be at Sears Point Raceway in Sonoma, California on October 1st and 2nd. Included on the program will be the championship deciding superbike race as well as super sport action. Endurance road racing headlines a weekend of racing at the famed Daytona International Speedway. October 28th through the 30th are the dates for this AMA Championship Cup Series event. The 1988 Suzuki National Cup Final will be held November 5th and 6th at Road Atlanta. This event pits the best production racers in the U.S. vying for a heaping amount of Suzuki contingency money.
Welcome back to Motoworld. Southern California Speedway competition is unique, to say the least. One of the things that make it unique are the various theme nights. Case in point, Western Night at Costa Mesa. Mark Gleckel reports.
County fairs all around the country share many similarities. The Midway, the games of chance, the Ferris wheel. But this one in Orange County, California, has speedway motorcycle racing. 500cc bikes on alcohol with no brakes. One summer Friday night every year, Costa Mesa Fairgrounds hosts Coors Western Night with live entertainment, carnival rides for 50 cents, and the best speedway riders in the country. And there's a lot to see, too. There's custom trucks, local celebrities, the fans, the girls, the band, even a cow milking contest, which pitted the top qualifiers from the heat races. Number 18, Steve Lucero, won the event, even after this rough beginning when his cow kicked the bucket, literally. Maybe it was Steve's leather suit got her excited. And what was Steve's secret to winning?
The double motion works. That's all it takes. Just squeeze and pull, squeeze and pull, squeeze and pull.
Squeeze and pull. Ah, but there was serious racing this night also. That's yet to come. But first, let's look at what it takes to make a good speedway racer. Lightning reflexes, starts, or gates as they're called in speedway, a very big part of winning. Throttle control and weight transfer. Get it right and no one can touch you. Get it wrong and you're into the wall. Choosing the right line. Like any kind of racing, there's only so much room in the corner. And finally, riding wide open, totally sideways, while 3 or 4 other guys behind you want nothing more than to do whatever it takes to get around. And the man that did that the best was number 6, Sean McConnell, winning both his heat races, then edging out a perfect victory in the semi, and finally, after a restart that left the entire field except McConnell on the ground, Sean McConnell put together a great ride to win the race and the unusual bronze cowboy hat trophy. And how did he feel?
Great. I've been waiting for this hat for a long time.
In California, for Motoworld, Mark Leckel reporting.
With that, we're just about out of time. We do have an upcoming special message for all of you longtime Motoworld fans, and be sure to stay tuned as we roll the credits. You'll see the new World Champion.